They say the most dangerous thing you can do is care about someone who doesn't know you exist. On a rain-slicked Tuesday in Chicago, I broke the cardinal rule of survival: never get involved. I was just a shadow in a waistcoat, pouring vintage wine for people who saw me as part of the furniture. My life was a fragile ecosystem of overdue tuition bills for my brother and the exhausting grind of double shifts. But then, in the porcelain silence of a restroom, I heard the sound of a life shattering. It wasn't a crash, it was a whisper, a woman's voice, smooth as silk and cold as ice, dismantling the man waiting for her outside. In that heartbeat, the invisible girl had a choice: stay a ghost and survive, or step into the light and save a king from his own queen. This isn't a story about violence. It's about the terrifying power of truth. It's about realizing that sometimes the sharpest weapon isn't a blade, but a choice made when your hands are shaking. It's about risking your entire world for a stranger, because it's the right thing to do. If you've ever felt small but wanted to be brave, this is for you. If you enjoy stories about high-stakes betrayal and the courage to rewrite your destiny, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me, would you have walked away, or would you have slipped the note? I was standing on the edge of a cliff, about to throw my safe, quiet life into the abyss for a man who probably thought I was part of the decor. My fingers trembled, almost crumpling the receipt I was holding like a shield. I slid the folded paper under his untouched glass of water, praying he wouldn't dismiss it as trash, because if he did, the trap set for him would snap shut, and I'd be the only one who knew why his life fell apart. "More water for the table, sir?" I asked, my voice sounding thin and brittle, like dry leaves. His companion, a breathtaking woman named Isabella, was laughing at something on her phone, the sound polished and hollow, cutting through the low hum of the exclusive dining room. Behind Gabriel Moretti, the Chicago skyline loomed like a wall of iron and glass, indifferent to the fact that I was about to ignite a firestorm. 20 minutes ago, I had been retreating to the restroom for a moment of silence, when the click of designer heels announced her presence. Through the gap in the stall, I heard her whisper into her phone with a chilling corporate efficiency, outlining a plan to dismantle him. "The sedative is in my purse. I'll slip it in his drink. Once he is out, we move him to the secure location and force the transfer. He won't remember a thing until he wakes up with nothing." I had frozen, my breath catching in my throat, realizing that the woman smiling across from the city's most brilliant tech mogul was about to steal his empire and his freedom. When I walked back onto the floor, the room felt different, charged with a silent, suffocating static. I saw the men by the entrance, not with weapons, but with the predatory stillness of corporate fixers waiting for a signal. Gabriel didn't look up at first, his gaze focused on the tablet in front of him, tracking markets that moved millions in seconds. But then his eyes caught the edge of the paper. I willed him to read it, to stop being so confident for 1 second and see the life raft I was tossing him. He unfolded it with agonizing slowness, his expression unreadable until the words registered. "Don't drink anything. She is drugging you. They're waiting to take you." The air around him seemed to freeze. There was no explosion, no shout, just a sudden, terrifying clarity in his dark eyes. He looked at me then, really looked at me, with an intensity that made my knees weak. "Isabella," he said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "I think we need to leave. Now." Isabella blinked, her smile faltering. "But darling, we haven't even ordered." Gabriel didn't answer. He stood up, his movement abrupt enough to startle her, and grabbed my wrist. "You too, Elena." He knew my name. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Men like Gabriel Moretti didn't learn the names of servers unless they were threats or assets. Before I could process it, he was guiding me toward the kitchen exit, his grip firm but protective. "Why?" Isabella's voice rose, shrill and panicked, losing its polished veneer. "Gabriel, stop," but we were already moving. The fixers by the door stepped forward, blocking the main exit, their suits expensive and their intentions clear. Gabriel didn't hesitate. He pushed through the swinging doors into the chaotic heat of the kitchen, pulling me with him. "My car is out back," he said, his voice low and urgent. "But we can't use it. They'll have it watched." I was struggling to keep up, my mind racing. "My brother," I gasped. "Leo, he is at the university library. If they know I helped you." Gabriel stopped for a split second, turning to face me. "They won't touch him, I promise you. But right now, I need you to trust me." We burst into the alleyway, the cold rain soaking us instantly. Instead of his luxury sedan, he hailed a passing yellow cab, shoving me inside before diving in after me. "Drive," he commanded the driver, handing him a wad of cash. "Anywhere, but here." The safe house wasn't a bunker. It was a sleek, minimalist apartment in a nondescript building on the north side, filled with monitors and servers. It hummed with the sound of data, not danger. Gabriel paced the floor, phone pressed to his ear, unleashing a legal and digital counterattack that was awe-inspiring to watch. He wasn't calling hitmen. He was calling lawyers, forensic accountants, and private security. "Freeze her accounts," he barked. "Lock her out of the mainframe, and send a detail to the university. I want eyes on Leo discreetly. Make sure he gets back to his dorm safely." I sat on the edge of a designer sofa, shivering in my damp uniform, realizing I was in the center of a war fought with information and influence. When he finally hung up, the silence was heavy. "Why did you do it?" he asked, turning to me. "You could have stayed invisible. You could have let her ruin me." I looked up at him, seeing the exhaustion beneath the power. "Because it wasn't right," I said, my voice steadying. "And because I know what it is like to have people underestimate you, to think you won't notice when they're trying to erase you." He walked over, pouring a glass of water safe, clear water, and handed it to me. "You just saved my life's work, Elena, and probably my freedom." The next few days were a blur of tension and quiet revelation. I couldn't go home. Isabella's partners were desperate and looking for leverage, so I stayed in the guest room of his fortress. I watched Gabriel work, seeing the man behind the headlines. He wasn't just a ruthless businessman. He was a builder, someone who wanted to create things that lasted, and he was devastated by the betrayal. We talked late into the night, not about business, but about dreams. I told him about Leo's medical school ambitions, about the weight of carrying a family alone. He told me about the isolation of the summit, how hard it was to trust when everyone wanted a piece of you. "I built walls to keep people out," he admitted one evening, looking out at the city lights. "I never thought the danger would come from someone I invited in." I stood beside him watching the rain streak the glass. "Maybe you were just looking for the wrong kind of loyalty," I suggested softly. He turned to me, his gaze softening. "Maybe I was just waiting for someone brave enough to tell me the truth." When the dust settled, Isabella was facing charges for corporate espionage and attempted kidnapping. Gabriel's legal team had dismantled her plot piece by piece, exposing the entire network. There was no violence, only the crushing weight of justice. I stood in the lobby of the building, ready to go back to my small apartment, to my brother who was safe and sound, thanks to Gabriel's silent protection. "You don't have to go back to the restaurant," Gabriel said, stopping me at the door. "I have a foundation. We help students like Leo. We need someone who notices things others miss. Someone with integrity." I looked at him, seeing the offer for what it was, not charity, but partnership. A chance to change my life without losing myself. "I'm not a charity case, Gabriel," I said, tilting my chin up. He smiled, a genuine expression that reached his eyes. "I know, you're the woman who saved the king. I'm not offering you a handout. I'm offering you a seat at the table." I smiled back, feeling the shift in the air, the promise of a future that wasn't gray, but vibrant and full of possibility. "I'll take it," I said, "but you're paying for Leo's tuition." He laughed, and it was the best sound I'd heard in days. "Deal." I walked out into the Chicago afternoon, no longer invisible, no longer afraid. I had risked everything on a single choice, and I had won.